Today, we're diving into the unexpected moves by GM and Ford CEOs who have seemingly made a U-turn on electric vehicles. Buckle up as we unravel the massive reasons behind their decision and explore the potential impacts on the automotive landscape. Let's get started. With their new EV models, GM and Ford have both had production issues that have caused delays and fewer deliveries than expected. Chip shortages and supply chain interruptions have been blamed for this. Even with declining battery prices, many consumers still find the upfront cost of EVs to be a barrier. Furthermore, there are worries about range anxiety because the infrastructure for charging is still being developed in many places. As more companies enter the EV industry, such as Tesla and Rivian, it's getting more and more congested. GM and Ford are under pressure to set themselves apart from the competition and hold on to market share. GM and Ford have both committed large sums of money to the research and development of EVs. Ford has pledged $50 billion to EVs through 2026, while GM intends to invest $35 billion in EVs and autonomous vehicles by 2025. In the upcoming years, both manufacturers will introduce new EV vehicles such as the Ford F-150 Lightning, GMC Hummer EV SUV, Chevrolet Silverado EV, and Mustang Mach-E GT. The range, performance, and cost concerns of consumers are addressed by these new models. The business is benefiting from a supportive policy environment created by the Biden administration's emphasis on climate change and EV adoption. This covers investments in charging infrastructure and tax credits for EV buyers. Ultimately, despite certain obstacles encountered throughout the EV deployment, GM and Ford have remained committed to the technology. Both businesses are still dedicated to the electrification of the economy and are investing heavily in the development of competitive new EV models. GM and Ford are in a strong position to take a leading position in this expanding market, and the future of electric vehicles is still bright. Reducing EV spending and delaying certain models are recent moves that do not mean giving up entirely. Both businesses still have current projects and long-term EV commitments. This might be a calculated delay to enable them to better position themselves in the market and create more competitive products. Even though there's a growing consumer interest in electric vehicles, issues such as high upfront costs, a lack of adequate charging infrastructure, and range anxiety persist. Production and profit have also been hampered by growing material costs and supply chain interruptions. Not merely a lack of interest, but these difficulties affect important choices. Governments imposing tighter pollution laws and encouraging the development of electric vehicles are putting pressure on both companies. Although this pressure might spur innovation, it also makes it difficult in the near run to achieve lofty goals given the limitations of the market and current technology. Although the change may appear to ignore customer preferences, businesses are really reacting to a complicated market dynamic. Their long-term objectives, financial stability, and consumer preferences must all be balanced. In order to better meet the demands of customers in the long run, it may be necessary to prioritize cost and solve issues like range anxiety. Previous remarks about EV difficulties ought to be taken into account. CEOs, however, take into account a variety of variables and changing market situations as they work within a larger corporate framework. It's not a betrayal of prior assertions to modify plans in light of new facts and circumstances. Rather, it's an indication of good leadership. Large automakers with a plethora of resources and expertise are Ford and GM. This pause is certainly a strategic modification, not a surrender. By improving their EV offers, resolving production issues, and adjusting to market conditions, they may come out on top. They might also concentrate on investigating alternative technologies such as hydrogen fuel cells. Even with the possible tendency of some people moving to hybrid vehicles, the worldwide EV industry is still expanding significantly. This implies that although certain issues may be making people rethink pure EVs, the uptake of EVs overall isn't slowing down. Hybrids are making an important part of the switch to fully electric vehicles. They provide familiarity, perhaps alleviate issues like range anxiety, and have fewer emissions than conventional gasoline-powered cars. EVs aren't inherently in danger because of their popularity. The complicated automobile sector is impacted by a number of variables, including laws, fuel prices, technology development, and consumer preferences. It's critical to avoid oversimplifying and take into account how various components interact. The EV market is still in its infancy and is growing, even though losing important information might result in financial losses. Whenever making selections based on fragmented information, investors ought to proceed with prudence and thoroughly investigate their options. Making well-informed investing decisions requires concentrating on long-term trends and comprehending the fundamental causes of market fluctuations. Your financial approach shouldn't be dictated by spectacular stories about sporadic fluctuations. One way to reduce the risks associated with particular industry trends is to have a diverse portfolio that spans multiple industries and technology. Although the statistics regarding EV owners transitioning to hybrid vehicles is intriguing, it shouldn't be seen as proof positive of a coming market collapse. Making educated judgments requires closely examining the data source, comprehending the causes of the trend, and taking the larger market dynamics into account. Investors ought to proceed with caution and refrain from making snap judgments based on incomplete information. Even though there may be hiccups along the way, the EV market is growing quickly and has a strong long-term growth trajectory. The market for electric vehicles offers an interesting case study in consumer behavior and corporate strategy. On the one hand, Jim Farley at Ford is a proponent of audacious plans and taking chances to advance electric vehicles, even if they do so by aggressively lowering prices. On the other hand, Mary Barra of GM is accused of misjudging market demand and using obstinate pricing strategies in response to criticism of her electric vehicle strategy. Now let's explore further. It's evident that Jim Farley at Ford is pushing EVs hard. He's made electrification a top priority, set high goals, and even agreed to sell EVs at a loss to encourage sales. This willingness to take chances shows a strong conviction in the long-term possibilities of EVs. Ford's efforts have not improved the surprisingly low demand for its EVs, which has left dealerships with unsold inventory. This begs the question of whether consumer preferences are being misinterpreted by their pricing strategy or by the market as a whole for particular EV models. Decisions made by Mary Barra during her time as GM CEO have proven controversial. The large expenditure on electric vehicles demonstrates vision for the future of transportation, but the popular Chevy Bolt EV's discontinuance and the company's opposition to price increases have drawn criticism. Like Ford, GM's unsold electric vehicle inventory indicates a low level of demand. Though it may have been a calculated move, the Bolt's discontinuance raises more questions than answers about their overall EV plan and its viability. Pricing affects EV demand, but it's not the only thing that does. Sales difficulties can also be caused by range anxiety, constraints in the charging infrastructure, and consumer concerns about new technologies. For other automakers, Tesla's hegemony in the EV industry sets a high standard. In order to draw in customers, Ford and GM may need to set themselves apart through strategic innovation and focused product offerings. Both Ford and GM must closely examine market changes in order to modify their EV business plans. This could entail reviewing price policies, reassessing product ranges, and coming up with creative ways to solve customer complaints. Working together with both long-standing partners and recent arrivals might expedite technology developments and tackle issues related to charging infrastructure, which would eventually be advantageous for the entire electric vehicle ecosystem. The difficulties that GM and Ford are having in the EV market serve as a reminder of how difficult it is to keep up with the quick changes in customer preferences and technology. Their dedication to EVs and their ability to adapt and influence the future of mobility shouldn't be overlooked despite their current problems. With their enormous resources and combined knowledge, Ford and GM can both continue to be major players in the EV revolution's success. The story of this movement is far from over. Keep in mind that the automotive sector is a dynamic ecosystem, and success in the EV market necessitates flexibility, agility, and a thorough comprehension of both consumer demands and technology improvements. As the narrative develops, let's keep examining patterns, evaluating tactics, and applauding the breakthroughs that will eventually lead us to a sustainable future for transportation. The switch to electric vehicles is a difficult and drawn-out process. The infrastructure needs time to grow, the technology needs time to evolve, and consumer adoption needs time to reach critical mass. In the automotive sector, GM and Ford have a long history of innovation and adoption. They have all they need to overcome obstacles and emerge victorious in the EV industry. Internal combustion engines, hybrids, and electric vehicles are just a few of the technologies that will likely be used in transportation in the future. Businesses that provide a range of solutions to cater to the needs of various customers will be in the best position. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to stay connected with our journey through the world of innovation. Feel free to share your thoughts and comments down below, as we'd love to hear back from you. Stay tuned for more exciting insights into the world of technology and innovation.